The first thing I heard that Monday morning was my phone vibrating like it was trying to claw out of the nightstand. I grabbed it, still half asleep, and the screen lit up with a number no one ever wants to see, 47 missed calls. All of them stacked one after another: Ethan Cole, HR, accounting, vendor relations, and 3 department heads from Evermark Logistics Solutions. A new voicemail came through before I could breathe. "Anna, this is Marla from compliance. We need you immediately. The West Coast client is threatening to terminate their entire contract. Ethan said you were looped in." Another message cut in right after, Ethan's voice cracking. "Anna, answer your phone. The system is down across all regions. I need you here." I sat up, pulse thudding in my throat. 2 days ago, Ethan had looked right at me during my promotion review and said, "With your capabilities, you're nowhere near ready for a promotion." I remember blinking once, swallowing the sting, and answering with nothing more than, "Thank you for the feedback." Then I had shut down my computer at exactly 5 o'clock and walked out of the building for the first time in years without staying late. Ethan had watched me go. Confused that I did not crumble for him, now he was calling like the whole world was on fire. Another voicemail came through. It was one of the junior analysts, her voice shaking. "Anna, I know you said you're off this weekend, but the routing platform won't load and no one knows the override process. Ethan tried something and it got worse." I pressed the phone to my forehead, trying to understand how everything could collapse so fast. Evermark had problems, sure, but when I left Friday evening, the system was still breathing. Lily pushed open my bedroom door, still wrapped in her blanket. "Why is your phone blowing up this early?" I did not have an answer. I just stared at the screen. 47 missed calls, 8 voicemails, and a river of unread messages. Somewhere between Friday at 5 o'clock and this morning, something inside Evermark had snapped, and somehow, all of it now pointed back to me. I slid out of bed and reached for my clothes, knowing I needed to face whatever waited downtown. 2 days before the chaos, I walked into the small conference room on the 4th floor with a folder full of data and something I had not felt in a while: hope. 4 years of rebuilding Evermark's operations had to count for something. Ethan Cole was already seated, tapping a pen against the table. "Sit. Anna, let's just get straight into this." I sat across from him and opened my folder. I compiled performance metrics for the past year. Error rates dropped by over 30%. And the West Coast client. He raised a hand. "Numbers aren't the issue." My voice faltered. "Then what is?" Ethan leaned back like he was settling into a comfortable insult. "You're nowhere near ready for a promotion." The words landed with a dull thud inside my chest. He continued, almost casually, "You lack leadership presence. Someone like you works best in a supportive capacity." I stared at him. "I built the entire cross-department escalation system." "Yes, and it is fine for what it is," he said. Flipping through a set of slides I instantly recognized as mine, my formatting, my phrasing, even the workaround graphics I designed at midnight months ago. But leadership requires visibility, authority, charisma. I tried to keep my voice steady. "You presented my workflow redesign to senior management last quarter." Ethan shrugged. "Because I had to. Optics matter, and frankly, an external candidate may be a better fit for the direction we are going. So that was it, the role I shaped, handed to someone who had never wrestled with a broken vendor system at 2 in the morning or managed a client on the verge of walking. I felt the first hairline fracture inside me. Not quite anger. Not yet. Just a cold, steady realization that the person who depended on my work the most had no intention of ever acknowledging it. Ethan capped his pen. "Take this as constructive feedback. Grow from it." I closed my folder slowly, almost carefully, like if I moved too fast I might break apart. Then I stood, nodded once, and walked out of the room, the fracture widening with every step. When I left Ethan's meeting, the hall felt strangely quiet, as if the building already knew something was shifting inside me. I stepped into my workspace, and before I could sit, my phone lit up with 3 messages. Anna. The vendor portal froze again. Devin from accounting called across the aisle. Can you work your magic? I kept my voice even. I will look at it after I finish the reconciliation review. He nodded, already relieved, as if nothing had changed at all. Before noon, I had mediated a logistics misrouting issue, rewritten a communication template for customer relations, and untangled a purchase order mishap caused by a junior team member who whispered, "I am sorry. Ethan said you could fix it faster." That was the story of my job. Everyone assumed I would catch what fell. Most nights, I stayed until 8 or sometimes 10 just to prevent the next day from catching fire. I drafted training manuals for processes no one bothered to learn. People praised the results but never asked who produced them. When I finally logged off that evening, my sister Lily was waiting at the kitchen table. Homework spread everywhere. "You missed the parent meeting again," she said quietly. My chest tightened. "I know. I am sorry." She pushed her notebook aside. "I get that you have to work, but I wish you did not have to work so much." I did not have an answer. I only managed a tired nod before my phone buzzed again. The next day, while I reset a corrupted vendor file in the break room, Ben from IT leaned against the doorway. "You know Ethan showed your workflow slides at the leadership briefing," he said. "I saw. He did not mention you once." Ben lowered his voice. "He also said he handled the late-night fixes you did last month." The quiet inside me sharpened, narrowing into something more defined than irritation. I closed the laptop and stood up, feeling the truth settle into place. The morning after Ethan dismissed my entire career with a few clipped sentences, I walked into the office with a plan so simple it felt strange. I opened my task list, the official one, not the endless mental list I had carried for years, and followed it line by line. At 9:30, Devin hurried toward my desk. "The West Coast client is asking for the expedited routing update. Can you send it?" "That request belongs to logistics," I said. "They have the access." He blinked. "But you always—" "Not today." He backed away slowly, confusion spreading across his face. By noon. 3 more people approached me with problems they had never learned to solve because I had always filled the gaps. Each time, I directed them calmly, politely back to their own departments. Around 3, a coordinator leaned over my cubicle wall. "Anna, something is wrong with the shipment tracker. Can you take a look?" Her tone was tight, desperate. "It is not in my job scope," I answered. "You should loop in vendor operations." Her eyes widened. Are you leaving the company?" The whisper passed through the office before I even stood up. "Is she quitting?" Something is off. Did Ethan say something to her? I ignored the rustling and finished the last required task on my list. No extra reconciliations, no after-hours forecasting, no preemptive fixes to spare everyone tomorrow's headaches. At exactly 5 o'clock, I powered down my computer. The sound felt like a clean cut. I picked up my bag and walked down the hall. Ethan's door was open. He looked up, surprised maybe at my timing, maybe at the steadiness in my face. "Thanks again for the advice," I said. His expression flickered. He had expected tears, maybe apologies. He got neither. I stepped into the elevator without looking back. When I walked through the front door at home before sunset, Lily's eyes widened. "You are home already." I hung my bag on the chair. "I am." She grinned, the kind of grin I had not seen in years. "Then, do you want to help me bake something tonight for once?" Nothing in me felt pulled away. By Thursday morning, the office felt different, not louder, just more frantic beneath the surface, like everyone was pretending nothing was wrong while everything quietly unraveled. At 9:15, an email from vendor operations landed in my inbox, marked urgent. The vendor portal had frozen again. Normally, Ethan would forward it to me with a terse note. "Fix this." Today, he tried to handle it himself. 10 minutes later, it copied the entire department on a message. "Incorrect override attempt detected." Ethan marched past my desk, jaw tight, Anna, did you see the vendor ticket? Yes. And it belongs to vendor operations. His nostrils flared, but he kept walking. He knew I was right. An hour later, a coordinator from logistics rushed over. A shipment meant for Portland got routed to Fresno. We cannot reach Ethan, and no one knows the escalation protocol. I kept my tone even. The protocol is in the logistics handbook. Page 12. She blinked rapidly. I have never seen the handbook. That is a separate issue. I said. Emails began piling in, people forwarding requests without reading them, attaching notes like, "You usually handle this. Can you take it?" I forwarded each one back with the same line. This belongs to logistics, not operations support. This belongs to accounting. This belongs to vendor operations. By mid-afternoon, the West Coast client's update request had bounced through 3 departments without resolution. Someone finally came to my desk, whispering, "Please, Anna, just this once." "I am following my job description," I replied. "You need to reach your department lead." Across the room. Ethan shot me a look sharp enough to cut. He could not reprimand me for doing my actual job, but irritation radiated from him like heat. At 5 o'clock, I logged out and walked out the door again. When I stepped into the apartment, Lily was slicing vegetables at the counter. She glanced up, startled. "You are actually home." I set my bag down. Yes, I am. By Friday morning, I felt something I had not felt in years light. Not carefree, just lighter. I walked into Evermark, opened my task list, and followed it exactly as written. Nothing extra, nothing invisible. Around mid-morning, a junior analyst named Chloe crept toward my desk. "Anna, do you have a second? I have 5 minutes. I said. She twisted her hands. "We might have an issue with the West Coast account. Their integration report is acting strange." "That belongs to Ethan." I answered. "Forward it to him." Chloe hesitated. "He will be annoyed. I am sure he will figure it out." Her eyebrows lifted at the quiet edge in my voice, but she nodded and walked away. By 4:45, I was shutting down my computer when a notification popped up. It was an email from Ethan, forwarded from the West Coast client, flagged urgent, time-stamped 1 minute earlier. No message from him, no directive. Just a forwarded problem he clearly expected me to jump on. I closed the email. The clock on my screen changed to 4:59. Chloe appeared again, whispering, "Ethan left the office already. Then you should reach out to vendor operations." I said. Her breath caught. "He left before 5. Apparently, at exactly 5 o'clock. I stood, gathered my things, and headed for the elevator. A few employees exchanged glances like they were watching something unfamiliar happen for the second time in a row. Lily greeted me at home with a wooden spoon in her hand. "You are early again. Are you sure everything is okay?" I kicked off my shoes. "Everything is fine tonight." We made dinner together, her teasing me for chopping vegetables too slowly, me pretending to be offended. Afterward, we curled up on the couch and spent hours watching a show we used to love. The kind of night I had forgotten was possible. My phone sat face down on the coffee table. I never reached for it. When I finally went to bed, I fell asleep fast, wrapped in the feeling that my life finally fit around me instead of crushing me flat. And for the first time in months, I did not brace for what the next workday might bring. By the time I pulled myself upright in bed, the phone was still vibrating. I opened the voicemail list, and the first message began playing automatically. "Anna, this is Marla from compliance. We have an audit flag on the West Coast integration. There are data mismatches across all regions. We need clarification on your escalation notes." My escalation notes, the ones Ethan never once asked about. The next message bled in without a pause. "Anna, this is Victor from Vendor Relations. The shipment tracker is down. Ethan said you were the point of contact listed in the integration file. Please call back." I froze. Point of contact, I had never been listed as that. Then, Ethan's voice cut through the room, frantic and breathless. "Anna, answer your phone. The entire system collapsed overnight. The client is furious. I told them you were monitoring this. Pick up. He had told them I was monitoring it. Another voicemail chimed. Harsher. Anna, this is HR. We need to speak with you immediately regarding possible compliance breaches. Call back as soon as you can. My stomach tightened, heat rising behind my ribs. Ethan had set the trap so neatly, my name in documents I had never touched, responsibilities I had never been assigned. And now the perfect narrative, the quiet, dependable employee who suddenly failed. The next voicemail was from a vice president I had never spoken to directly. His tone was clipped. Anna, Ethan informed us you were aware of these risks last week. We need confirmation that you escalated properly. I pressed my fist against my knee, steadying myself. He was not just panicking, he was trying to bury me. The final voicemail played, and the shift in tone was immediate. Anna, this is Deputy Director Harmon. We have reviewed the internal logs. It appears Ethan redirected responsibilities without authorization. We need you here as soon as possible. You are the only one who understands the original framework. The room went still. Somewhere between Friday evening and this morning, Ethan had tried to rewrite the story, but Evermark had finally seen the truth hidden beneath the collapse. By the time I reached Evermark's lobby, my phone was still buzzing, but the building itself felt unnervingly silent. The receptionist glanced up with relief. They are waiting in conference room B. When I pushed open the door, every face turned toward me, executives from operations and compliance, 2 legal officers, HR, department heads, and Ethan, seated at the end of the table, pale and stiff. He stood quickly. Anna, we need to discuss your role in the escalation failure. You should have. I cut him off gently. Before we begin, I need clarity on what, exactly, you believe my role was. Deputy Director Harmon gestured for me to sit. Ms. Hayes, Ethan reports that you were aware of risks and failed to escalate properly. I set my laptop on the table and opened a folder. Then let us review. Ethan shifted. This is unnecessary. I ignored him and clicked open the first email. 3 months ago, I requested additional staffing for the integration workload. Ethan declined. I slid the printout across the table. Then another. Here is the message where I warned of system instability after the vendor update. And another. Here is the timestamp showing Ethan deleted my follow-up instead of forwarding it. Ethan's jaw clenched. You are twisting. I am presenting facts. I placed a thick binder on the table. This is the full operations manual. Every protocol failure in the past 48 hours is outlined clearly. No one reviewed it. One of the legal officers adjusted her glasses. We also interviewed the external auditor. He confirmed that shortcuts were taken on the integration sequence. Harmon turned to Ethan. Shortcuts you approved. Ethan's face drained of color. He stopped when the vice president raised a hand. Enough. The room shifted toward me, the weight of authority changing direction. Ms. Hayes, the vice president said carefully. What would it take for you to help us stabilize this today? Ethan exhaled sharply, panic flickering behind his eyes, as though he finally understood the ground was no longer beneath his feet. The conference room fell into an uneasy quiet after the vice president's question. Ethan stared at me as if waiting for me to crumble, as if I would step back into the role he had carved out for me, silent, obedient, invisible. I folded my hands. Before I agree to anything, I want my role defined properly. Harmon nodded. Go on. I want the position of Director of Operational Integrity. I said, with authority to rebuild our processes from the ground up. Ethan snapped. That is excessive. No, I replied calmly. It is necessary. I continued. I want full hiring power to staff the department adequately, and if you expect crisis management outside standard hours, it must be compensated and formally assigned. The vice president looked at the legal officers, then back to me. What else, Ethan cannot be in any supervisory position over me? A muscle tightened in Ethan's jaw. This is a personal attack. It is a protective measure, I said. You tried to attribute undocumented responsibilities to me. You attempted to use my name to avoid accountability. I am done enabling that. Harmon exchanged a look with HR. Ms. Hayes, I should tell you that before you arrived, we reviewed the auditor's findings and internal logs. Ethan will be removed from management and placed on performance review effective immediately. Ethan's breathing hitched. You cannot. You left the company exposed, Harmon said. This decision is final. The shift in the room settled fully, then authority turning, balance changing. I closed my laptop. If those terms stand, I will stabilize the West Coast integration, but I will lead it my way. The vice president extended his hand. Then consider them approved. I stood and gathered my notes. Ethan could not even look at me. Within the hour, I was coordinating teams across 3 departments, issuing step-by-step directives, and restoring order to the mess Ethan had created. My voice was steady. My decisions were respected. For the first time, the work I had always done finally belonged to me. The crisis took most of the day to untangle, but by dusk, the West Coast integration was stable again. The teams followed every directive I gave, and for the first time, no one tried to override or second-guess me. When the final confirmation came through, Harmon stopped by my desk. You did good work today. Director Hayes. Hearing the title spoken aloud sent a quiet ripple through me. It did not feel like a gift. It felt earned. By the following week, my new role settled into place. I held meetings to restructure escalation paths, assigning responsibilities that had long been dumped into my lap. The younger analysts listened closely as I walked them through the areas Ethan had ignored. During one session, Chloe raised her hand. So, this is what you used to handle alone. All of it, I said. But that ends now. We do this together. She nodded with a seriousness I had not seen from her before. As the days passed, the department shifted from chaos to something steady. People learned procedures instead of bypassing them. The late-night emergencies vanished. The burden that once bent me in half spread evenly across a team finally equipped to carry it. Ethan avoided me in the halls. His demotion was quiet but final. He had been reassigned to a minor administrative role in a separate division. The last time I passed him, he kept his eyes down. There was no triumph in it for me, just closure. One evening, I walked into the apartment and dropped my bag on the chair. Lily looked up from the kitchen counter and smiled. You look like someone who finally breathes. I do. I said, I really do. Later that night, as I sat at the table reviewing my new project plan, it hit me gently 2 days ago. I walked out at 5 o'clock for the first time in years. Everything changed because I stopped giving my worth to people who refused to see it. And for the first time, I did not feel invisible anymore.